Hey, and welcome to another edition of KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. I had to look at the screen there. I do two podcasts, and I always have to make sure I got the right one up there. But for those of you tuning in right now, you already recognize the guy to my right. He is definitely one known around Knoxville Raceway, actually around the sprint car world. Terry McCarl out of Altoona, Iowa. And normally this time of year, if we're talking, it's because we're talking at the racetrack. But unfortunately, the whole world is parked right now, and we've talked about this. You and I are ready to go racing, just nobody else is. So.
Well, I think everybody's ready to go racing. We just can't.
Yeah. So before we start talking about the present tense, if you will, we're going to go back in the Wayback Machine a little bit and talk about Terry McCarl growing up. First of all, everybody around here is, Terry McCarl, East Side Des Moines, but you didn't live in Des Moines your whole life.
Pretty much. I mean, I grew up there, and then when I was like first, second, third grade, we moved to Keosauqua, Iowa.
Right.
My dad worked for a company down there, Richardson Racing, Chuck Richardson, and Corey's Machine and Tool was his company, and it was fun as a little kid.
Right.
The Des Moines River went through the town. There was a lot of cool things to do as a little kid. I'm sure my older sister and brother didn't have that much fun as a teenager living in Keosauqua, Iowa. I think there was 1,200 people there, but yeah, we lived there for a few years, and then we came back to Des Moines. Then Lori and I moved out to California in 1990 when we first got married, and we lived up there for a few years. So other than that, lived in Des Moines most of my life.
Des Moines bound. Talk about that, because that's, your dad, he also raced back then, and he won a lot of races down at Burlington too. He kind of dominated that track for a while.
I know he had the track record there in the Nowing cars back in the day, and back in 1975 they actually ran Bloomfield every Friday night, and he won the championship. Roger Rager ran second to him. I think Steve Hainline might have been third there, and then they kind of reversed roles at Knoxville. Rager beat my dad that same year on Saturday nights at Knoxville. My dad ran second. Steve Hainline ran third. So my dad actually built the cars that year. In 1975, you have to remember there was USAC going on, but there was no World of Outlaws. Knoxville is still today, but at the time was really a big deal in the sprint car world because there wasn't a lot of organizations other than the USAC. And my dad built the cars that ran first, second, and third in points that year. So it was a pretty big deal as a manufacturer. And, he built his own cars, his own motors. He did everything himself. And actually his brother Ivan raced here at Knoxville, I think in 1958. He started racing here. So there's been a McCarl racing here since pretty much every year since 1958. That's quite a feat, I think. But and that's what got my dad, I think, hooked into Knoxville and to sprint cars. Back in those days, they were super modifieds.
You were talking about Ivan. At what point did you realize, first, second grade, you're down in Keosauqua, Iowa. At what point did you realize you wanted to be a race car driver someday?
Always.
Always?
Yeah. Back in those days, NASCAR didn't really exist, I don't think. I always wanted to be an IndyCar driver.
Sure.
AJ Foyt was my hero, still is. So, IndyCar racing was where I always wanted to be. I remember telling my teacher when I was a little boy, they had one of those classes saying, hey, what do you guys want to be when you grow up? A policeman or whatever. And I said, I'm gonna be a race car driver. I'm gonna be a famous race car driver. I think I told her, and she literally laughed at me.
Yeah.
I still remember it. So I don't know if I'm famous or not, but I've made the race car thing work pretty well.
Infamous or famous are kind of all in the same.
Yeah,
so.
Depends who you talk to.
It's funny you bring up Indy because, again, when we were growing up, Indy was it. You went sprint car racing so you could get to Indy. I think a Rager, I think a Levitt, Kinzer tried it out also. Somewhere along the line, Joe Saldana. I forgot about Joe. Somewhere along the lines, this guy by the name of Jeff Gordon kind of switched the whole wave over to NASCAR.
Yeah,
I think he was one of the first ones that at least have success in NASCAR.
Well, I just think that NASCAR did a really good job of marketing themselves. I think Bill France Sr. seems like a pretty smart man and built a heck of a corporation, a heck of a company, and took it nationwide and got it on TV, and they put on good races. They had some great things going on, and then IndyCar ran into some of the turmoil that they had at a time, and lost a little bit of the luster, but. It's Jeff Gordon, of course, did open it up for sprint car guys, really, I think. But like you said, there was a lot of guys. Roger Rager,
right. That
was a huge story, him making the Indy 500 with a supposed bus engine in the car,
right,
I think.
Right.
But Roger Rager was actually, he doesn't get talked about enough. He was a pretty amazing driver when I was a kid, and I've known him most of my life. It hasn't been that many years ago. I was at Jackson, Minnesota, probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe at the most. And
right.
We had a red flag, and Roger was walking by. And he was talking to me. He had a cigarette in his mouth. And, And I said, hey, well, man, get rid of that cigarette. That stuff's going to kill you. And he grabbed the front of my car and bench pressed it, chest pumped me up to here with me in it.
Yeah.
I'm like, put me down.
Yeah, motor the whole 9 yards.
Oh, yeah. And he could do that when I was a kid, when the cars were way heavier than they are now. And he could do that to my dad's car when I was a little boy. He would do that in the shop. The guy was amazing, and an amazing driver, too. Even when he was older, he was still kicking butt.
It's funny. I got two regular stories real quick while we're talking about that. One was my first interview with Roger. He won the Masters Classic out here, and him and Ferkel got together.
Oh, yeah.
Andy Punt and Ferkel. And he comes and he goes, boy, I hated doing that. He goes, I've raced for that guy forever. And he goes, I don't think I've ever bumped wheels with anybody like that before. And I'm thinking, yeah, Roger, you have, And the other one was when he actually backed into my van in the coal pit.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm walking across and I'm looking at him and I'm like, this guy, he's going to back into my van. I can see it. I mean, he's going straight. And what I won't tell you who he was looking at, he was actually looking at a lady that was crossing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's actually what I remember
he
about
squared up. I mean, just boom, hit my van.
Better not getting too many of these stories, but honest to God, I've been coming here since I was a little boy, and I remember he ran up front at the Nationals. He ran second at the Nationals 75 that year. They won a championship in one of my dad's cars. But I just remember he had the cutest little blonde wife back in those days, and they got divorced after that, I think. And he's always had beautiful wives, but he was a stud. He was a badass guy.
Didn't he meet one of his wives? Like Trossel took him took him over to South Africa or something like that. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what I heard.
We're going to have to chase that down again. That's
should have him on. He's a great guy.
Oh yeah. And the stories he could tell.
Oh, I don't know if you could.
it's podcast, so we can get away with a little bit there. But let's talk about you come to Knoxville Raceway. I know you race karts coming up also, but you got in the sprint car world. The first car I remember, I think it was your first ride here, was Darrell Aaron's car.
Yeah, I have that car sitting in my garage right now. Darrell's one of those guys that didn't really get rid of. He had Buzz Rose's car from way back in the day that I think he recently just sold. Really beautiful old Don Edmonds car, I believe.
Right.
And then he kept my car. I think Danny Tillman drove it after me a few times, but other than that, I don't think it ever got raced again. So I have that car. I don't have the engine. He still has the engine and pieces there, I think. So I'm gonna try to get that from him. But I have that car, and my dad didn't want us to be race car drivers, just like I didn't want my kids to be race car drivers. My dad broke both his legs twice and his back, and I've kind of caught up to him on that stuff, unfortunately. Yeah. But he did not want me or my brother Kenny or my brother Tom to race, and so he wouldn't help us do anything. And he wasn't a wealthy man, So he wouldn't let us do anything, and I finally bought a go-kart when I was 18. I didn't race anything, and I bought a go-kart when I was 18, raced out at Rayos Speedway and around and all the indoor events around this area, and there was a lot of stuff going on in the wintertime on the Coke syrup.
Sure.
And then, I was able – it was unfortunate. Darrell Aaron and his son Chris were real close, and Darrell built the engines. I think Chris kind of set the car up in 1984 there. Chris came to our shop about Nationals time, I think, and – had a lump under his arm, he told me, and I was like, oh, man, it might be cancer, kind of just joking around what it was, and he died from it before the season started. So I think people thought Darrell wasn't going to race anymore, and I was just this dumb kid who'd raced go-karts for 1 year, and I called him up and asked him to drive his car. I remember Lori was standing there with me. I was in my parents' basement. I was 18, 19, around there, and I didn't think he would do it, but sure enough, I think because I was friends with Chris, and I was, Chris was a little older than me, but I was a young guy. I don't know if that had something to do with it, but him and Gloria were nice enough to let me drive their car, and the rest is history. So he gave me my start. I always tell him he's crazy to do it, but he had he wasn't a rich man either, but he built the motors himself. We had a little 383 iron engine, and he had a McCarl car my dad had built. It was actually 8 or 9 years old when I first started driving for him. I think maybe 8 the first year. When I won at Knoxville, it was 9-year-old car. And but it was a really clean car. He kept it really, really nice, and it was really well put together. And we did really well together for what we had. And so it was a great time. And had a lot of great memories with Darrell. But
you actually were racing before go-karts, so we got to bring up your skating history as well.
Yeah. That was my way to race. To be honest with you, I needed a job, and I love
roller
music.
skates. Just to clarify, not ice skating.
Yeah, no, roller skates. And I liked roller skating because I loved music, and I would go out to the roller skating rink, and they have races during the night, and I was always wanting to win, and then they opened up Skate East, was brand new when I was probably about 14 or so, and got to be friends with Mark Muse and his family. They owned all the skating rinks in Des Moines, and actually like my second uniform says Skate East on it. They bought me a uniform, and so I started working for them, became friends, got on the speed skating. Again, it was my way to race. My dad wouldn't let me race. I had no way to race. I'm a very competitive person, and we traveled all over the country. That's probably honestly the best skating team, believe it or not, almost in the world. Then with not me, but Mark's brothers Dante and Tony were two of the best in the world, literally. And we had a great team. So we went to Florida and Tulsa and all over the country, Michigan. We traveled all over the country to different skating meets. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of good way to meet girls. And again, then he turned me into a DJ. And again, I love all kinds of music, and partly because of Mark, and because of doing that, I had to play, Rapper's Delight and stuff came out, and all the different types of music. So it was fun. It was a fun way. Back then, skating was so big, and again, it was a great way to. I'd put Rapper's Delight on because it was 15 minutes. That way, I could go skate with Lori for a while and not have to change the record. So
is that where you guys met? I know you were in school together, but where'd you actually meet where you knew for sure?
She was 2 grades behind me at East, and we met at an East High football game one night, and then we met really good, or got to, first place I ever kissed her was at Skate East, so it was a lot of fun.
You're such a romantic.
It's a babe.
I could see this, the lights going down, we got the disco ball rolling.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. I make fun of you, but it wasn't that long ago we celebrated your birthday. We went skating.
Yeah,
you went skating. I watched.
It was fun. We hadn't done it for a long time. I realized we were in really, really, really good shape when we were kids, because about 2 laps in, I was about ready to die.
No doubt about it. And we had fun that night. And I still prove that I am very good at drinking, and you are very good at skating. So
I'm still all right.
Yeah.
I've got a few broken legs that I'm a little more timid about falling, but it took me a little bit to get going. Once I did, we were pretty good. We're
going to talk about your leg modeling career in a little bit. You got your first win with Darrell Aaron's car in 1985. You won 2 of them, right?
3.
3 of them.
Yeah.
2 of them back to back?
I won 3 weeks in a row, so that's a little play on words. I didn't win 3 in a row because one of them was twin features, but it wasn't. I won the first one of the midseason. Well, the night before I won, believe it or not, Knoxville had a 2-day show, July 4th. And I led the night before I ever won. I led it to the last corner, last lap, and I screwed up in traffic and got loose. And Shane Carson got by me in the Beaver Tool 12X. And so I had that one won, and I just made a mistake. And then I won the next night. And then the next week, I believe it was twin features the next week. And I ran 6th in the first one. So I started 6th row of the second one. I won that. And then I won again the third week. And then I was leading championship night, going away, and we blew a tire. I had to go to the back, and I think we ended up finishing 8th. So I finished 5th in points my second year, and I believe that last night, at the last point night, if we would have just finished where we were going to finish 3rd in points our second year we raced.
Every time you say McCarl chassis, you talk about McCarl chassis. My cousin's first car that I helped own, part of it, was a McCarl, and we got it at Speed Sport. Hey, there's a McCarl chassis in Michigan. Well, we're not going to get this car, All the bells and whistles are with it. We bring it back. We cannot hit the racetrack with it, let alone anything else. We can't make this car work. And your dad says, that's one of my cars. Why don't you bring it up? I'll set it up for you, Hey, cool. The guy that built the car wants to bring it up. We pull in the driveway, back in, unload, thinking, he goes, why don't you get this car behind me here? He goes, it's an 82. I built in 1982, da-da-da-da-da. And I said, well, this is an 82. He goes, no, it ain't. I said, no, the guy sold said it was an 82. And he goes, that's one of my cars. I should know. Yeah. I said, well, yeah, it's an 82. He goes, no, I drove that car, he said. He goes, now the front end's different. He said they put a clip on it because when I drove it, it had spring front on it.
Oh, geez.
It was way old. And I'm like, holy cow.
Like 74.
So, yeah, it was way. And I'm like, wow, we just got screwed, we didn't know it. So ended up buying a car off your dad. I jump into that because you ended up in the 7X eventually. And you said, Dad's not going to give me a ride. Dad's not getting me started. But eventually you guys kind of melded together a little bit.
Well, he waited till I tore up everybody else's stuff a little bit. He was smart. I didn't even start a race sprint car until the day before practice night down here. And I don't know why my dad wasn't off racing, but Darrell wasn't able to come, so I drove my dad. The championship car, Rocky Hodges, Randy Smith won the championship 2 years in a row with it.
Right.
And so that's when I went out hot lap my first night. But I didn't start it till my neighbor's yard across the street. I started a sprint car the day before I raced it. So, these kids nowadays, you look at them and think, oh, my God, they're so amazing for whatever, 15, 16 years old. But, man, so it's just like that in every sport, I think,
right.
Whether it's basketball or football, or the parents are getting these kids and, playing all year round if they can, which is great. But these kids are starting so young now. They have a lot of laps. And, I didn't even start a car until the week before I ran one in practice night here at Knoxville. So then I got into his car. I after Darrell, we ran so well. I drove for the Smiths down from Missouri a little bit at the end of that year in 1986, and then I was able to get in Bob Vielhauer's car, which was that's the car Shane Carson had beat me with before.
Right.
And Jim Springer was a mechanic, and it was a great car, great equipment. And I got hurt. Actually, it broke a wheel on a start of a feature and started flipping there in turn 4. And Rocky Hodges hit me in my dad's car. He was running the 5M. My dad was running the 5M team for Chuck Merrill.
Right.
And knocked me goofy for a little bit. And I was out for a little bit, and I ended up losing the ride with Bob. And, he's going a different direction. And I was kind of screwed up for a little bit. And then I was able to get in my dad's car, and that's 1987. And we had a ton of success there right at the Nationals, and right before the Nationals, won a lot of races. And the Nationals made, we made the AMA, started 12th, ranked second qualifying night to Sammy, and then we started 12th and ran 12th in the A. And then I don't like this historically if Bob Wilson's watching or whoever, Eric Arnold, but they call it that I won the non-qualifiers race, but it was on Sunday. They had the mystery feature and the stage feature, and so they were trying to get all, those ticket sales or whatever back to the people. And so, I made the AMA, the Nationals, and I was in both races, and I won one of them, and they call it the non-qualifiers, but that was really, it should be called the mystery feature, I think, because it was kind of a mystery.
I think that you're talking about Keith Kaufman won the stage race, I think, that year too.
Yeah,
so
I
remember
think you're right.
Because something smelled funny.
Good.
Well, something smelled funny in the air that day. I remember that distinct smell. So, not saying that anybody from the East Coast ever cheats, but I'm just saying
might not have been illegal.
It might not have been back then.
I don't make the rules; I use them to my advantage.
Exactly right.
What Gilbert Sonner taught me.
We talk about Lori. We need to bring her back in the picture a little bit because, again, you're talking racing for your dad. A lot of guys don't have time to be in a relationship, but she melded into this family. I mean, it's like, I don't know what her history is as far as growing up, but it wasn't around the McCarl family until she started seeing you.
No.
It wasn't racing per se.
No, she was not from a racing background or family at all. And she was 12 and I was 14 when we met.
Right.
I told her two things. I've told the story many times, but I told her, honestly, it's a true story. I said, I'm going to marry you someday and I'm going to be a race car driver. But again, she didn't have a racing background. She didn't know to run right then. And but she's been amazing. She's been a big part of our success for sure. Having a great woman behind you is so important. To have someone to back you. And all the times I was hurt, I wanted to quit. A few times when I got hurt really bad, she wouldn't let me quit that way. She said, "You come back and race, and then if you want to quit, then that's cool. I'll let you. But you can't quit hurt like this and end your career that way. You'll always regret it." So she's pretty smart. She's a pretty wise woman.
She didn't want to live with you quitting is what it was. And she knew what you were going to be like working at Come and Go or wherever the other places we keep talking about going to work
I
at.
wish I would have.
You'd have a pension by now, right?
Exactly. What's that?
You guys end up packing up together and heading out West Coast. And we're not talking Kid Rock style. You went to California.
Yeah.
What caused that move? Did you got a ride out there, or you wanted to try something different, or what?
I had a page of notes at the end of that season. It was 1989. A page of ride chances or sponsor deals or whatever. I didn't have my own car back then. And I got to the end of it, and I didn't have anything. That's one of my favorite stories. I called Max Rogers once about driving his car, and he answered it. And you get all pumped up when you call someone for a sponsorship. Or,
You're selling yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, Max, Terry McCarl. Man, I'd really love to drive your car someday. And he was like, no. And I was still in salesman mode. I'm like, okay, well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And I hung up, and I'm like, son of a gun.
Thanks for the turn down.
I know.
Yeah.
So I was at the end of, I didn't have anything going on. And then actually I was going to drive. I had just met with Mike Van Dricken and the guys with the one car, the brothers. Jordan Brothers.
Yep,
and we met at Checkerboard Pizza in Pleasantville, and I was going to drive for them. And Jimmy Sills was a good friend of ours and a good friend of my dad's. And I called out to him. I'm like, man, you know anything out in California? Because I'd raced a few years, but there's no short tracks around here. And, Knoxville's the greatest track in the world, and it pays the best, and it's groomed the best, and the lighting's the best, but it's actually easy to drive. It's not easy to win at by any means. It's very, very, very tough to win at, but it's so nice that it's actually easier than these little junky tracks you go to that are rough and nasty, and the lights are horrible. So, and my boys are kind of in the same position I was at that point. I needed to get out of here. I needed to go race some short tracks. I'd never really raced a short track, so I called Jimmy. I'm like, do you know anything on the West Coast? And he said, you know what? That's funny you called me. I just heard of a new team popping up down in the San Jose area. They're looking for a driver. I said, so it was Weldon Oldfield.
Nice.
So I called him up, and sure enough, he flew me out to interview with them, and they were looking for I'm a little bit older than Brian, the oldest brother. There's Brian, Kelly, and Keith, and I just fit right into it. They're like family to me now, and they immediately, Weldon liked me right off the bat. We come out there, and we kind of grew together. I didn't know how to set up a car and to work on stuff, and I basically had to work on it all the time myself, and it was just a lot of fun. It was great for Lori and I because we got married in October, and I moved out there in February before her and found us a place, and then she moved out. But I had her quit UPS. She'd been at UPS already 5 years. She started there when she was 18. Yeah,
man, that would have been retired by now.
She already had like $5,000 in her 401k at that time. I'm like, oh man, we screwed up.
Let's be honest, though, $5,000 back then. Hey, we got $5,000.
That was a lot of money. Yeah. Oh yeah, we went through it. But me, her, and our dog Alex rented a U-Haul and drove out to California. So for us as a relationship, it was awesome because we didn't have any friends.
Right.
And we, we became best friends, and all we had was Alex at the time. Met a lot of great friends like Craig Smith and, of course, the Ophil family and people that are lifelong friends with me still today. So it was a great time in our life because we didn't have any – you didn't own a home. Well, we did own a home, actually, but we sold it and didn't really have anything to tie us down here, no kids, no anything. So it was an awesome time in our life. Plus, we were living in the Bay Area. San Francisco is about 30 minutes away. There's so much going on out there. We had a great time. Yeah.
And good people. You talk about the Ophils, and they come back here every year. You guys go out there. I mean, that's a 30-year-plus relationship. I mean, there's some people that in this room that can't make a marriage last that long sometimes. So it's just
we won't mention names.
No names intended here, but no, it's and they're good people. Like I said, they treat me like family, and I haven't known them near as long as you have, and they love sprint car racing as well.
Yeah, they're great people, and Weldon's like a second dad to me. So.
Right. You're in California how many years?
2.5. And then I screwed up. I just wanted to go outlaw racing. I was young, and we had a great year the second year. We got things kind of squared around, got a motor off my dad, and really started doing well. Won the GP Classic, which was a big race at the time in San Jose, and won the Johnny Key Classic, which was a 100-lap race.
Wow.
Yeah, and the record, I think, was like 63 laps led, and I led the whole 100 laps. And so we won some big races, and we won another big race at the end of the season, and it was, I wanted to move on, and I wasn't from California. I wanted to get on the Outlaw Tour. That's my whole dream. And I talked Weldon and let me take it on the Outlaw Tour in 92, and it was too early for them. I wish I would have waited another year or two, maybe won them a championship or something out there, and then they would have, wanted to go outlaw racing as much as I did. But there wasn't, after the races, I had to try to find there was no cell phones, there was no internet. And so I remember calling Weldon. I ran fourth at Granite City, calling him, finding the payphone, calling him so excited. But I think now those types of things work a little better because, Weldon now he's got Race Monitor.
Right.
He just turned 74, I think, or 73, and a couple of days ago was his birthday. But he follows. You can follow your car now. You can follow it on the internet. You can watch almost everything on pay-per-view. So I think I've got Kalani Fender from Hawaii sponsors me, and Burnett's Rock and Landscaping from Florida. We've got people all over the country because they can still follow us so well because of the internet and social media and things like that they can stay, like they feel like a part of the team.
They don't have to wait for Speed Sport to come out next month saying, you didn't run fourth, you ran 14th. Oh, no, I said 14th.
It was amazing how excited I would get. Like at Paris, California, they had a payphone in the pits. I'm like, oh, my gosh, I can call Lori right after the races. Now kids are like, what? She knows exactly what I'm doing. It's a funny story she tells. Like Paris was one of them. She would call up racetracks after the races, and the lady answering the phone wouldn't know who won or anything. She said, well, can you just tell me, did anyone go to the hospital tonight?
Oh, yeah.
And the lady would say no, and she's like, all right, it's good. No matter what, it's good. So.
Wow. You guys are out in Cali, 2.5 years. You go outlaw racing. I think, did you end up having was that your rookie season with the Outlaws that you ran that year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think you ended up at the end of the season, if I remember correctly, my words here, Devil's Bowl. You were on a borrowed motor with Berryhill.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I walked up the pit area. It was you and your cousin and a bucket of tools.
That was the next year.
Was that the next year?
Yeah,
okay, 93. I can't remember what it was. So
yeah, I had taken everything back to Weldon in the 92. He wanted to get back to racing local in California, and so I didn't have anything.
That's right, because Berryhill ran rookie with you the year before that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have finished the season if it wasn't for Bob Berryhill.
Right.
I crashed really bad. Hughes used to run right after the Nationals.
Sure.
Had a big race, and I get around Hughes pretty well, and I was going good, and Steve Kinzer and so on got in a tangle up in front of me, and I've just destroyed my car, and I was sitting there, head down on the side. I didn't have stuff to put back together. I was done.
Right.
And Bob Berryhill come up to me, he goes, "What are you down about?" I go, "Man, I destroyed my car. I'm done. I got to go home." And he's like, "No, you're not." I go, "Well, yeah, I am." He goes, "I've already talked to Chuck Merrill at Maxim. Call him Monday, get what you need." He goes, "I'm not letting Aaron win this Rookie of the Year thing without a fight. And you guys are, we had a real close battle going on."
Yeah.
And he had loaned me a motor a couple times and stuff like that. So he's been behind the scenes quietly. I have Berryhill racing on my car in little spots a lot of times, but Bob's been a huge part of my career. And right there, I would have had to pull out at that time and take it back to California. But little things like that, little people, people like that have helped you along the way. I've got a bunch of them, but.
And Bob still helps out too. I mean,
No, Bob. I talk to Bob about every week or text him or something. And we started the next season again. I still want to go outlaw racing. Right. I don't have anything. I literally went to Sears.
I'm not kidding. It was a bucket of tools too.
No, I went to Sears and I got was that a Discovery? They had their own card. If some, I can't remember what it's called.
Sears card. I
got a Sears card basically, and got a toolbox, a set of wrenches, a set of screwdrivers. I swear to God, it's a true story.
Yeah, I know.
And I got my cousin Richard like the day before I left. I seen him at my brother Kenny's, and got him to go. We went down to Houston and to Dallas and all those races to start the season out. And I had one right rear wheel, one left rear wheel. I borrowed one from Kenny, one of each. I found out what gears I needed. Kenny loaned me the gears, and Chuck Merrill loaned me that big blue and white truck and trailer. It's seen more Outlaw shows than all of us
that
put
truck
together.
Needs to go in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, it should have.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And Chuck was nice enough to loan me that, and he fronted me a car, let me make payments on it. And Chuck's another person that's been a big part of my career. And we started off right there, and we came back for opening night in '93, and we had ran Wichita somewhere down there, and I wasn't, I was running at the back and making nothing. And Lori's like, "You need to come home. This is ridiculous. You don't have any money to run the Outlaws." And so I did. We come back opening night. Lasowski was unbeatable. The year before, I think he'd won everything, 10 races or something. And opening night, '93, I had him beat. I drove by him. We had a heck of a fun race, but I had a Maxim. I was early on. I had a Maxim, and the car was really fast. And and I had the motor. Bob Berryhill loaned me an older motor of theirs that they kind of didn't like it. And he was nice enough to loan it to me. And I drove by Lasowski and had him beat. And the white flag come out, and I had it won. And Tim Monson blew a motor, and they threw the yellow back then. If you've watched the old video, it's kind of funny.
Back.
Well, no. I was leading it, but they started on the back straightaway, no cone.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And I had always had a road grader. Forbrooks motors run so awesome. So on the restart, he drives by me, and I pass him back, and he drove by me. And then at the checkered, he beat me. I was right beside him, basically. But I remember calling Lori because she had a party to go to that night, and I was like, "Oh my God, I paid like $2,000 for second." I was the happiest second place I ever had. So we started. That's the black 27 car. Now Carson's black 27. We ended up running second in points to Danny, and I started, like I said, I only had one white rear wheel, one left rear wheel, and at the end of the year, I owned the car myself. I think I had a spare car, and I had all the spares, and that's how our team, owning my own team, really got going.
Black 27 car ended up with a McCroskey on the side of it too.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how that partnership got started here a couple of years later, as Mick Promotions was discovered for 1996.
Yeah, Bill was again another big person in my life right there. I called him up, and we were living in Lori's parents' basement. I remember calling him, and he said he'd give me $500 a month. And we were so happy. We were high-fiving, and Bill was, was a great guy. He's starting the new dealership there at the time.
Down Sheraton, yeah.
And the next year, I always tell that story to young guys coming up. I say, listen, don't, you treat all sponsors the same, and make sure you stay in touch with them. But I said, like Bill McCroskey was $500 a month, and he had so much fun, and we did so well together, and I had his name on the car, and we're, kicking butt, became good friends. I said the next year he spent $100,000, I think.
Right.
That's a lot now, let alone back then.
Yeah, $500 to $100,000. That's
Yeah. He bought that blue and white truck and trailer from Chuck Merrill for me. He said, "I'll buy you this older truck and trailer and 3 Westmars, or I'll buy you a really nice truck and trailer and 1 Westmar." I said, "I'll take the 3 Westmars and the old truck and trailer."
Exactly.
So, that was big for me, and Bill really got me going right there. And then Roger and Laura Hall are why I was number 24, and we came along on that, and they started. We kind of teamed up, and that was their number. And Go Cars was number 24, and that was the first year that Jeff Gordon became number 24. So that's where the 24 came from.
About that same time, though, you did slip away from Knoxville again, and you drove for Holbrook.
First, I drove for Brad Gray in '96.
'96, right?
Yep, and ran second again. People forget too. I ran second. I think I ran second in points at Knoxville. Like,
oh, you bridesmaid,
6, 7.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time. Lasowski's 115 wins or whatever he has. I think I ran second to him. Honestly, about 40 of those.
Yeah.
But luckily, Knoxville pays pretty well for second in the points and for the feature. But and then after Brad Gray, I drove for Junior and Janet Holbrook. I went and drove for him at the end of the year that year at Eldora.
Right.
Rodney Duncan was driving for him, and he couldn't make it, and so they called me up. I remember I counted 13 times I hit the fence coming off of turn 2 at Eldora. The fence kind of comes out at you a little bit there, but I got to know Junior and Janet and I have, again, Janet's a huge part of my career too, and been lifelong friends. Talk to her all the time. She's a great person, and we got to know each other then. And then next year they needed a driver and wanted to go all-star racing, so they hired me in '97.
Eventually, you ended up coming back to Knoxville, and then eventually you ended up World of Outlaw. And I want to talk about Hughes for a little bit before we go on the Outlaws again, though, because you mentioned going out to California and getting some short track experience. And although Hughes isn't the shortest track around the Midwest, but I know that is definitely a driver's track, period, end of story. And you dominated Hughes for a lot of years up there.
Well, I got talked Brad Gray into run on it, so we went up there and won the championship in '96. Right. And actually, the first time I went there was Bob Vielhauer used to still cuss me to the last day I ever seen him. He was still cussing me about it. I think we went up there when I drove for Bob there in '87, and got all the way up there, and he goes, "This isn't a damn half mile." I said, "I never says a half mile." I go, "Yeah, you did." So we go out and we run you have to unload.
Right.
So we had to unload. We were on the back straightaway. We had to unload. We went out, ran the heat race, ran third, come in, and it just poured. I mean, it didn't rain. It poured.
Yeah.
And he was so mad at me after that because we hauled all the way up there and then got rained out. But Bob was a great guy. He's a lot of fun to be around. But Hughes, I miss it so much, and my boys do too. And back then you had to run the MD50 McCurry, real hard tires. So you used to get slick. It wouldn't lay rubber that often, but it was a driver's track, like you said, and they inverted. They inverted by point average, and so I had to start 12th all the time. And then Steve and I are friends, and I went, Steve, it's only 25 laps, man. You can't start me 12th all the time. Then he made me start 14th, and then 16th, and then there at the end I was starting 18th.
Yeah, you didn't start 12th though.
Oh no, I didn't start 12th. Hey, you want to start 12th? There you go. So and I have mixed emotions about it. Of course, as a driver, you don't want to have to start that far back, but it made for a lot of interesting things. I think as a promoter, I always think about if I were to start a track or run Hughes or run Knoxville or whatever. The top guys are going to complain about it but it put on such great shows for the fans, because even if I was able to win, most of them came in the last lap or two, which is exciting. People hated me, wanted me to lose, and they were rooting for me to lose, and the people who wanted me to win were excited. And either way, they left excited, excitedly, mad that I won it, or excited that I passed Kenny Hansen. I got him on the last couple laps so many times I felt bad. Kenny's a good guy, and but it also gave other teams, not as well funded as mine or whatever, just starting out, a chance to start up front, maybe lead some laps, give them some promise and some hope, or their sponsors set up there, hey, our guy's going pretty good. He led 10 laps, or so I think there's some positives in inverting like that. It's just the cars have gotten so equal. I could start 18th or 16th then, and with that MD50, especially if it was slick, I could shot at winning it. But nowadays everybody's so equal, and the cars are so equal, and I don't know. But again, I don't know what I'd do as a promoter. I'd probably tell the drivers tough luck and try to pay good money and still invert them a bunch if I was promoting it.
I can't remember which car you were driving up there. It might have been Jeff and Woody in the 55. I can't remember. Yeah. But cell phones were around by then. I happened to call you up and to see how you're doing, because we didn't have the technology of, hey, this is how you finish. I can already tell him that. But I think I called you. I waited till like a half hour, 45 minutes afterwards the race was over. I thought, okay, the race should be over by now. I'll call and find out how he did. And you answered. He goes, hey, I got to go. I'll call you back. This place is crazy. They're climbing the fence. I'm like, oh, you won. Yeah, cool. Oh, yeah, I won, but they're not climbing the fence for the win. They wanted to lynch you that night.
I didn't win. They black flagged me. Yeah,
they black flagged you? Okay.
Yeah,
I thought you won that night.
I passed Kenny. Kenny Hansen would never lift.
No.
The guy, I don't care if it was me or Lasowski, the guy, and I remember it perfectly. I hit the fence earlier, which I did a lot at Hughes, and I knocked the Jacobs ladder off, and he was leading, and I come up and passed him, and I remember sliding him, going, Kenny, I'm coming, man, hit the brakes. Well, he didn't, and he got over the back of me and flipped out of the ballpark, got stuck in the fence, and
that's why they were. I thought you'd won that night. I got my story confused.
I was going to win. Yeah. Doug and the gang kicked me out of a race, and they did that to me another time, passing for the lead. But I said, if you did this to Sammy Swindell, half his career would have been nullified.
Right.
You can't be black flagging people like that, in sprint car racing, unless it was, super obvious. But it's the best thing in the world for Rubens. I mean, literally they were climbing the fence, wanting to kill me. The police had to. They kicked me out.
Right.
Kenny came down through his steering wheel at me. Which, I mean, as a promoter, my God, I'd give a bonus to everybody involved right now if this happened at Oski. So, but the crowd was just going crazy. And, in retrospect, Kenny wasn't happy then, but now it's kind of a funny story. But he hit Glenn with it, Glenn Freeland. And I told him, I should have kept that steering wheel, man. Maybe come back get it. But, yeah, I was driving for the best people ever to be driving for then, Jeff Rasmussen and Jeff Woodruff, because Jeff, you can't get either one of them two riled up, and so they kicked me out. And so the policeman there was my friend, and I'm sitting there loading my stuff up. He goes, Terry, you gotta go, and he was kind of scared and looking back. I go, hold on, man, I'm getting my stuff. Me and Rory, he goes, no, I'm sorry, buddy, but he goes, those people are going to come. They're going to kill us. I go. You have a gun. He goes, I know. I don't want to use it. It was like when Reagan got shot. Man, they took me out back. Our car pulled up. We jumped in. They had to get Lori.
Push you in.
They had to get Lori. I guess she wasn't with me in the pits, but she was going to pick me up. They had to get Lori, and the boys were really little. People were like trying to push her down in the stands. It was brutal. I love Hughes for that because they're like Pennsylvania fans. They're really into sprint car racing.
Oh, yeah.
They were awesome. You know, they love you. They love you. They hate you. They hated you. But they were really into sprint car racing. They were there every week. I mean, they made signs. Anybody but McCarl and Steve would get on them about cussing and stuff, and I would too on the microphone. And so one week, a guy had a B, and there was about 20 people with O's. So every time I come on the track, they'd have this big boo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. They're into the races. So they're coming to see me. I always say that old line. I learned it from my dad, told me about Lloyd Beckman, but he said, got on the microphone and said, some of you are coming to see me win, some of you are coming to see me lose, but you're all coming to see me. So, you know, as a promoter, and I'm a promoter at heart, and, you know, Steve made a lot of money from that because I said I'm not coming back. I was pissed that they kicked me out. I didn't, you know, I didn't think it was a bad pass at all. You know, Kenny drove, I have it on video. He drove over the back of me, so it's sprint car racing on a short track. And I said, I'm not coming back. And I talked to Doug Wolfgang that week. He's like, dude, you got to go back. I go, I am not going back. Screw that. They screwed me out of my money. And, you know, Rasmussens are mad about it. He goes, you call Steve Rubin and you demand your money back. I'm sorry to tell this story, Steve, but, I said, he's not going to
He's out of the business now.
Yeah, he sold this track for like $50 million.
Yeah.
I always joke with him about that. But Doug had great advice. He said, no, you're going back. You call Steve right now and you ask for your money. He'll give you your money. I said, there's no way. He goes, he will. And he goes, and you take as many T-shirts as you could possibly carry next week because you're going to sell out, I'm telling you. Yeah. And I did it. And I called Steve and I said, I want my money. Jeff ain't coming back here unless we get our money. We won that race. And he said, all right, will you come back next week and do an interview with the newspaper, you know, tomorrow or something? I said, yeah. He goes, all right, I'll give you your money. And he did. And sure enough, I came back, and Lori only brought this big duffel bag. She didn't bring the boys. She brought a big duffel bag full of shirts because, you know, something she could run with. Right. And I won the feature, and I got up there. I got up on top of the wing and just egged the crowd on bigger than heck. And then Doug was right. He was pretty smart. And we sold every T-shirt we had. And they had an article on the front of the page, you know, McCarl speaks, and the crowd was half Kenny Hansen, half Terry McCarl shirts. It was awesome. It was awesome for racing. And like Doug said, he was right, and we sold every shirt we had, and you know we were packing the grandstands. So Rubens loved it.
You mentioned a story to me a few years back, and it kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Rubens a promoter. I mean, he's a natural promoter, and I don't know if you've learned everything from him, but you've picked up some things from other promoters around too. But you mentioned the steering wheel flying down or anything happening in the front street where the tickets are being paid. The ones that pay the tickets are the ones for the show. I bring up Danny Lasowski now because around here, it was you and Danny for so many years. Mm-hmm. And literally, back to the Boo Fest, if you won, you got booed because you beat Danny Lasowski. But you brought a story to me is there's no Hulk Hogan without the Iron Sheik. Yeah. You mentioned that to me. And you were kind of the Iron Sheik. You were the bad guy, labeled or not labeled. You were it against Lasowski. And it sounds like the same way up at Hughes against Kenny Hansen.
Yeah, he was a local guy, and yeah, one of the boys from Nunda. But yeah, I believe, and people, you know, I'm not making excuses because I'm very opinionated, and you kind of know where I stand. I speak my mind, and you know, you'd know a lot more about what I think right now if I didn't have two boys trying to race, and everything's gotten so political. And I tell the boys all the time, you need to be like Brian Brown. You can't be like me. And you know, Carson used to tell me that all the time. Dad, it ain't the '80s. You can't go down. And I go, I wish it was. Yeah. But no, Danny and I are perfect in that. You know, I'm the black car, and he's you know, he's a good guy, super nice guy, and all that, and you know, he doesn't ever say anything wrong generally, and I'll speak my mind, so it worked perfect. I mean, they you know, my excuses is not excuses real. They had a huge budget, and I had nothing, so it was David versus Goliath, and it was a lot of fun. I think even to this day, people, if they were Lasowski fans back then, don't like me, or if they were McCarl fans, they don't like Lasowski. It's great. It's great for the sport. It's great for me and Danny. One of my best-selling shirts ever when I was driving for Holbrooks was I had Bugs Bunny leaning on the 8H.
I was going to bring that up.
Because I always loved Bugs Bunny growing up, and he had Yosemite Sam on his shirts, and so perfect. So I put Bugs Bunny on my shirt, holding Yosemite Sam up by his beard, and it said, what's up, dude? Lasowski's like, I have signed so many of these shirts. I gave him one right away. We gave him one of the first ones. But rivalries are great. Yeah. But it's so hard now because, like I said, I don't want my boys to be the bad guy. And I didn't mind being the bad guy because I speak my mind, but I'm a promoter at heart. Those times at Hughes, I knew what I was doing, and I would say to him, "Hey, don't scream and holler cuss words. Boo me all you want. Boo me all you want. Love it. But there's kids up there. You know, don't say the swear words. But it's great for the sport. I mean, what would WWF, no offense, I know you're a big wrestling fan, for all intents and purposes, is staged.
What?
Those guys could kill us.
Yeah.
But, it is scripted.
Right. Scripted is a good word, yes.
And but they still draw huge amounts of people and great TV ratings. And this is real. This is sprint car racing, as we've seen in the last few years, is very real. You can die. You can get hurt. You can get injured. It costs a lot of money. And, there's a lot to it. So rivalries are really good, but it's just hard. Nobody wants to be the bad guy anymore, really. And because of social media now, Doug Wolfgang told me that one time. I said to him, they were booing me really bad. He and I were talking. He goes, you got it way worse than me. I said, no, I don't. I said, I was there when you won 10 in a row.
Right.
He won 10 in a row.
Right.
And the women really didn't go in the pits back then, like 1977, I think it was when he did it. And I said, you know what? Your wife was booing you back then. He goes, what? I go, your wife was booing you up in the stands. He goes, why do you say that? I said, because she had to.
Yeah.
Everyone was booing you. She would have stood out if she didn't boo you.
Exactly right.
He goes, you got it worse than me. I said, there's no way. He said, Terry, there was no social media back then.
Right.
And I said, oh, man, you're right. So, I was Hoser of the Year one year. Hose heads just lit up every day. But again, it was great because it's back to the passion of those fans up in the South Dakota area. And they were always that way when my dad went to Minnesota. Again, they're the closest thing to Pennsylvania fans, I think. They just love sprint car racing. They're really into it. And so when they love you, they love you. When they hate you, they hate you. But again, they're still coming to the races, still buying shirts. People used to say, everybody hates you here. And I'd say, look at my line for T-shirts back then. We didn't have a T-shirt trailer. We just saw the side door. And, we'd be lined up past the car. So, and I challenge anyone to ever say any different, but I've always been, my dad was really, really good with the kids, putting them in the car. So he taught me how to treat the fans. And I was super duper shy. People won't believe that, but I never trick-or-treated in my life. My brother Tommy had to get my candy for me. I was so shy. And I discovered girls as about 12 or 13. I realized shy guys, the girls don't like shy guys. So I could take you to the exact spot. I tell the story a lot where Joe Saldana was my favorite driver ever. It was 1970, so I was about 5 or 6 years old. I was walking with my dad to get paid. They used to pay in the infield there, and where he stopped, talked to Joe Saldana, and he said, "Hey, my kid loves you, man." And Joe talked to me for a second. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I could take you to that spot, honestly." Right. So I think about that. I know the kids nowadays, maybe not as shy or they see more of this, but I always think that, when you're having a bad night and those kids start coming up and Terry, man, you did good. They don't know. They're having a great time, and so I try to talk to every single kid and set them in the car if I have time or that kind of stuff, because it builds people like me and you and people that are watching this, hopefully, that are huge sprint car fans and hooked on this sport. I think, hook them when they're young and get them to come out. They're going to come around forever. So, I was always great with the fans, no matter how the night was or how people thought. I used to love to give away free stuff at Hughes to the kids because I would see moms and dads that I knew didn't like me, and they'd have to bring their kid down to get the free hat or something. And I knew they were hating it, standing in line, and the kids wanted their free stuff because I would announce it. But, the kids are definitely a future in any sport or any entertainment. We need to get them hooked as a young kid. And, when I was young, I liked wrestling, but it was like Rufus R. Jones and Danny Little Bear.
Good save. I remember, you talk about dealing with the kids. I can remember way back when I was pit crewing still. In fact, it was the first year I was doing it. And the Chad family came over from Nebraska. Nolan, Mike, and Dean. Great people. They talk all day to me. I get to the track that night, and Dean would not speak a word to me. And I'm like, what do I do to make him mad? What the heck? It's a zone. He gets focused on his job that night. And this is literally your career. And I've seen you in your zone. I've seen you focus. Now, you have fun racing, don't get me wrong. But this is a job to you, and I don't think a lot of people understand that for people like you, for people like Brian Brown now, Daniel Lasowski back then. This isn't if I run 10th, everything's going to be all right. I need to run 3rd or better, otherwise I'm not making a house payment this week.
Yeah, and it's kind of maybe it could be a bad excuse. People are like, why you get so mad, Terry? I'm like, dude, a guy just took me out. I said, how'd you like to work all week? Work overtime, work your butt off. You go to get paid, and some guy comes and runs into you, and you don't get your check. I said, but again, you probably shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it if you can't afford to do it. But there's that. I've had that situation where my house payment was due on Monday many times, and I had to win or run good, and people can't fathom the pressure. So I'm pretty proud of how we've done. Randy Smith told me years ago, and he was one of the best. The new generations don't know the older guys, but Randy was an amazing driver and big idol of mine too when I was growing up. And he told me, he's like, Terry, when I started my own team, man, I couldn't do it. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I'm not paying the bills. He was so used to being there's a lot of rides back then, and he's like, I didn't like paying the bills. That really hurt my aggressiveness, and it does. It hurts mine even too a little bit. So when you get somebody like Mondak, Rick and Barb involved, and Snowplow involved, and that kind of stuff, it certainly helps to to lessen that load or the pressure on you. But there's still a lot of times a lot of pressure, and I'm not the nicest guy in the pits, and at the track I'm pretty focused. But again, I think as soon as the races are over, generally, or away from the races, I'm a pretty nice guy. But I'm very, very competitive. I come to win, and I'm old school. You know, my kids hate when I say that, but I'm East Side, and I don't come here to make friends. I don't want to go up and down the pits to be everybody's friend. We're at war with each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're trying to take money out of my pocket and off my kids, you know, feeding my kids, and vice versa. I'm trying to take it from you. So I'm not very good at that. You know, Brian's really, really good at that, and I'm not really good at trying to make everybody my friend. I have a lot of friends away from the track. I want to come here and I want to win, and I'm pretty competitive, so might be a bit of an asshole at the track.
You know, it is what it is, but you talk about the kid situation, and I've noticed you do this every Saturday night, win, lose, or draw. You always take a moment to go up in the trailer, you know, clean your face off, whatever you're doing, get your composure, and then you come out. If it's a bad night, you still know that the kids are lined up for you out there, and that's got to be. I mean, I know my grandchildren right now look forward to seeing you all the time. You know,
they're lined up over at Austin's, and Carson's a lot more than me anymore.
That's not the little kids though. That's the 20-year-olds and the 25-year-olds.
A couple of Carson's friends stop by and say, "Hey Terry, we thought we'd say hi to you." I go ahead, going down to Austin's.
Let's fast forward to Austin and Carson a little bit. You know, talk about Hughes, and that's where Austin got his first win. And
no, it's not.
It's not?
No, his first one was at Rock Rapids.
Rapids, that's right. I forgot about that. First big win. There was a big paycheck went up there at Hughes one time.
Yeah.
I remember that. Like 10 grand or something.
10,000 win show on an open trailer.
Yeah, so. I remember that show. Okay. Well, I had to be corrected here because I'm going to be careful. Now, I told you I was going to do this to you, but there's 2 times I seen you tear up at Knoxville Raceway. Okay? One of them was when you broke a track record. All right?
It was kind of dumb, but I'm just so into the history of this place.
But it was the first time you'd ever broken a one-lap track record before.
Here. Yeah,
here. So I mean, this is home. This is where it is. And you didn't bawl or nothing like that, but you got a little emotional. And the other one, actually kind of a twice. You were driving for the 55 car, and it was a green-white checkered, if I remember right. There might have been more laps than that, but Austin was leading.
Oh yeah.
and you had a job to do.
Oh man, that's tough. That is
tough. You had a job to do.
Thank God he's won now, because if he would have never won, you can finish the story. But.
Yeah. You win. You come in. You don't want to get out of the 55 car. I mean, I'm leaning there. I'm like, you know, because I knew what happened, and I could see it in your eyes. And that's probably the slowest I've ever seen you get out of a race car in victory lane in my life, because you did not want to talk, but you did have a job to do. You were driving for TK at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and your job was to win. And then Austin here a couple of years ago, first of all, goes out and gets married in March. And that, like, the good luck thing just started to happen. All of a sudden, that whole year became right for him.
He did a great year.
You know, won the first race out. There, big hug in victory lane from you. Again, I couldn't see your face, but I'll guarantee that those were happy tears if they were.
Yeah. You always want your kids to do better than you do. Or,
right.
Tell people all the time, I mean, you want them to win, but you want them to be safe. But no matter what kind of sport they're in, you're certainly, again, we're all very, very competitive people in my house, so we want to win. And I took that feature away from him when I was driving for TK, and he had driven by us all and took the lead. He had it won. He was way faster. And
sure, it stays green. It's his.
Oh, yeah. And the red come out late in the thing, and Matt Barber was my mechanic. He's like, man, you know, Hefferteep's coming, and he was. He'd come from quite a ways back and got to third, and he was on me. He's like, man, Sam's coming. You got to go. And crap, man. I took off, and Austin threw a good little blocker on me. It was perfect. I was like, pretty good. He tricked me. Mm-hmm. And I drove down in 3 and 4, and I drove to the bottom, and that thing stuck like it hadn't stuck all year. Yeah. And I remember coming off 4, and I could tell, I'm like, sorry, Austin, but I got to go, man. And I slid him, and I felt horrible because he ended up not getting a win that night. He had a couple of them he should have won, and he didn't. And like, man, he went a few years before he got with Troy there a few years ago and got his first win. So I was like, I always think I was happier than him when he got that first win, because I felt horrible beating him that night. But yeah, it's tough as a dad to race against your kids. They don't understand it. They don't get it. They will someday maybe, but they want to beat me probably more than anybody. But I just, you know, I want to beat everybody. But when it comes to them, I try not to obviously put a bad slide job on him or something. But I still gotta try to win. I don't have that many left probably.
Was that the same year after he won? He won a couple of them, but was that the same year you were also inducted that year, or was that the year before? National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum?
I think so.
Right around that time period.
17 is when I was.
Again, a list of goals. And when you started, it was Knoxville Hall of Fame, and that was it. Mm-hmm. But National Sprint Car Hall of Fame is a huge deal now. I mean, that was a bucket list added to your bucket list after you started racing, because that was a thought after. How big of a deal was that to be inducted there? I mean, there's some huge names in there.
Yeah, it's
A.J. Foyt being one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's super big for me because I tell people all the time I'm really in the history. When I was a little boy, I mean, I read that Speed Sport cover to cover, and I really paid attention to everything. My dad, I'm a stats guy kind of too, and I'm really into the history. And Knoxville's the greatest track in the world, and Don Lamberti and everybody that got involved to make this Hall of Fame is such a cool thing. So it meant a lot. It meant a lot to me to be in that, and I don't know if I'm worthy, but I'm in there, and I'll do anything I can to help the Hall of Fame. I just think it's a great organization. Bob and Bill W. and everybody, all the ladies there do an awesome job. But it's something cool that Knoxville has, and I'm glad it's here and not somewhere else. And that was a goal of mine, believe it or not, and it meant a lot to me to get put in there, and still means a lot to me. So it means I had a decent career, I guess. So.
I would call it decent, yeah. Almost every photo, Victory Lane photo, most of them, when she's at the track, Lori's in it. Lori's in the Hall of Fame photo with you. I mean, we talked about this earlier. The fact that she's been through literally every part of your racing career, from the good to the bad, to have somebody beside you, not just behind you, but beside you the whole time on that. I mean, that's just, it's unheard of nowadays. For one thing, a lot of people have trouble with that. Yours truly, obviously. We won't mention any names, but the bottom line is, I seen you grinning, so I had to touch that. But the bottom line is, would you have had the career that you've had now, the success, be it racing, be it as a promoter, without Lori with you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No. And on the promoting side of it, it'll make me tear up more than anything talking about her, but on the promoting side of it, I'm an idea man. I've got ideas. I've got the best ideas in the world.
Believe me, I know.
Especially on them painkillers when my leg was broke. Oh, my gosh. It was pretty bad for her, but believe it or not, I got chatty. That's hard to believe, but I did.
3:30 in the morning to 4 o'clock usually is when I got the phone call. So
I mean, I had the best ideas. But anyway, and Bob Berryhill, and I've told this story a ton of times too, but Bob was my good friend. And he was hanging around here right before the Nationals, and they just ran Saturday before the Nationals, and a lot of guys would come in. We're sitting around on Sundays like, Terry, it's crap. We need something to do. I go, what do you mean? He's like, man, I need a race to go to. There needs to be another race around here. And I had that, and I've always thought about being a promoter my whole life. I used to write down, when I was a little boy, I'd get the Speed Sport, I'd write down payoffs, but I swear I did. Because I used to put the payoffs. That's how, there was no internet. That's how you knew of races. And my dad would look at different ads and payoffs of different races he might go to. And I'd make up my own payoffs and stuff. And so I always wanted to be a promoter. And I'd been to Oskaloosa, and my dad had raced there and all that stuff. I had never raced there, but and then when Bob said that, it just clicked. And I told her, I go, man, we need to put a race on in Oskaloosa right now. Like on Sunday, Monday of the Nationals. And again, I'm a great idea guy, but I would let it go at that. And on Monday morning after the Nationals, she's like, call them right now. You call them people. I'm like, oh, well, she made me call them.
Sure.
Southern Iowa Fair Board. And, it's coming up on the 25th year. And it was big. I love promotion. We've done some spring challenges, and, we were involved with, I think we had, we've been involved like
We're not supposed to talk spring challenges anymore.
Yeah. We were involved with, I think we helped promote. I got Cappy to give us the okay to have an Outlaw show at US 36 and an Outlaw show at Burlington. He had to give the okay back then for that to happen. And we were able to get him to, I think it's because he liked Lori's mom. He's a good Italian boy from Dowling. She's from Dowling too. So he gave the okay for us to promote those Outlaw shows there. And we've been on, I think we've had 5 Outlaw shows too, and have been involved in some, the King of the Hill series that Bill and I did back in 97. So that was a lot of fun. So I've always maybe do that again when I retire, start a little IRA type organization. I think that was a little bit of the basis of Todd Queering doing the NSL. He and I were together like 13 years and talked a lot about that, like kind of emulate the IRA I wanted to do. And, with Knoxville as a cornerstone and try to do some other races. Even when I was a little boy, my dad would like, man, we need some short tracks around here for these, especially for these young guys to race on. Get away from Knoxville, kind of the same things I'm saying. Right. Knoxville's so great, but these young guys especially, Donaldson and Burlington are such fun tracks, and it's not as much of a motor track, or go to some crappy tracks, that the lighting's bad, Bethany, Missouri and stuff, where the flag stands on rollers and stuff. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Those are good for young guys, but it's good for me. It gives me another place to race and hopefully win some more races and make some money. So I still believe in the concept. I think the NSL is a great deal, and hopefully maybe Todd will get that kicked back up here again in the future, and I can see that happening. But
you talk about King of the Hill and Bethany. I think you were out with Janet and Junior back then.
Yeah.
And Bill and I went down there, and they had that flag stand. I went, you got to do something to protect that flag, man. He's just out there on wheels. Oh, you're right. And I think I went and parked some trailers or something. I come back out, and they parked a sheep's foot in front of it. And I'm like,
Marty,
no.
Wasn't Marty the flagman?
Yeah. I'm like, no.
Marty was brave.
So
oh, my gosh.
That makes you appreciate Knoxville even more when you do that. I talked to Randy Smith years ago in an interview, and he told me Knoxville he got his speed at, and Hughes he got his timing at. And that's what you're basically saying. The short tracks, you get your passing ability and your timing, stuff like that. We got sidetracked a little bit when talking about Front Row Challenge, but a story that I remember vividly, and I never will forget, is when you I was at your place, and you said, hey, I got another idea for another race. And I said, oh, yeah, what's that? And he goes, non-wing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, non-wing, I'm all over it, because that's what we grew up on. It wasn't around anymore. He goes, yep, I'm going to pay $30,000. I said, oh, cool, $30,000 Front Row Challenge and a non-wing car. That'd be neat. No, I'm going to pay $30,000 win straight up. And I'm like, you're what? And Lori was in the other room mixing a drink or whatever. She goes, I already told him. And so all winter long, I'm sitting there going, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? And Lori and I talk back and forth, and we get to the day. And Front Row Challenge was huge the night before, big crowd. And we open up the gates on Tuesday afternoon, and there's no one coming.
Well,
there's nobody coming. And all of a sudden it sinks in, you've got to write a check for $30,000 just to win.
Yeah.
And by then, and I think it was Lori that said it best. We've already went through all this. We're here now. She kind of made you, it's going to happen, and it did. We found out that hangover fans show up a lot later than Monday fans.
I don't know when fans show up anyway. People always ask me. I don't really, back then, before I promoted, I didn't pay attention to really what time Hot Lap, or what time the fans came. I didn't look. And that night I remember looking up, and there's no one in the stands. And we're getting ready to start Hot Laps almost, Hadn't started a motor yet. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I'd called Lori, and she goes, relax. They're all out in their campers. They're all out here. There's some people here.
Sure.
But yeah, they came on. They were, back then, the Dingus bunch, AJ and the gang, they were a little hungover.
We opened up at noon on Mondays, and they partied all day and grilled. It was crazy. So, yeah.
I remember, fortunately, Bill McCroskey was my partner, and he's as crazy or crazier than me, actually, I think. Bill is. And he's the only person I said, I got this idea about this non-wing race. He's the only person like, I think it'll work. What happened was we went racing at, they had a big U.S. Dirt Nationals end of the year over at Terre Haute.
Right.
And Glenn Freeland was my mechanic, and Lori was there with me. And they had, both of them, he was from Florida, and they had non-wing cars and wing cars. And both of them were like, oh my gosh, this non-wing thing's cool. I mean, they just talked about it. And I realized that I grew up on non-wing racing as a kid. I've seen a lot of non-wing racing. And I realized they had never even seen, my wife had never even seen non-wing cars, ever. And I'm like, man, we need a non-wing race again. There you go. Mm-hmm. And I called Ron Schumann up because they had this with the California guys would come back, but they were coming back like in May for a swing with all the California guys, and then meeting up with all the USAC guys or the local people wherever they were going. It's a neat deal. And SCRA, the non-wing world championship that Ron had, and I called him up and I said, hey, I got this idea about this race, and I said, I don't mean to tell you your business, but I think you're making a mistake about the timing. When you come back here, you need to come back in August. There's a reason why mid-July, August is all the big races. I said, the kids are out of school then. You're coming back when the kids are still in school. People haven't really gotten into the summer mode yet. And I said, I want you to change your schedule and come back in August. And I said, I want this date. It's Tuesday of the Nationals. He's like, oh, man, I don't know about that. I said, well, how about if I paid $30,000 to win? He's like, what? I said, because Paris was only 20 or 25, I think.
It was the largest pay.
But it's a 3-day show.
Right,
they get your practice night, 4-day show. They get you for pit passes, don't pay much the first days, that kind of, which is fine. But I said, this is one day. That's where Justin actually came up with one night stand for $30,000. Mm-hmm. I said, 1 day in, 1 day out, boom, $30,000. He goes, oh, okay, what's second going to pay? I said, I'll pay $5,000 for second. He's like, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Or he said, let me call you back. And he called me back. He goes, I checked around you and Bill. We'll do it. And I think that changed his whole deal. And it was amazing. And my gosh, we had some great races. The night Jesse Hockett won the Ultimate Challenge, I don't care what anyone says. I think top to bottom, we didn't time trial. We ran 2 sets of heats. It was with Emmett's group, because the World Championship had dissolved. And when that night Jesse Hockett won, was top to bottom the best night of sprint car racing I've ever seen in my life. I don't care what anyone says. Every single race. I just look at the crowd, and seeing the crowd on their feet with their hands in the air in every single race at least once. And Kevin Swindell won one of the heat races. I think it was the last heat, the 8th heat. He was running 4th going to turn 3, and Robert Ballou was running 2nd. I can't remember who was leading, but that guy had ticked him off a little bit, so he got into the back of this dude coming off turn 4, got him sideways. Well, the guy running 3rd checked up, and there was going to be a big pile up. Well, Kevin drove by. If we didn't have transponders, then I don't think he could have scored it. They finished 4 abreast, and the crowd went crazy. I mean, Kevin got on top of the roll cage. And then it was fun because Robert Blue got on the microphone and he said it to me before that. He's like, they taught me if a guy gets in your way, just run into him, knock him out of their way. And I go, well, he won't say it on the microphone. Yeah, Robert said it. He didn't care. So the crowd went crazy.
Sure.
And Jesse Hockett should have won it a couple other times. He had it won, and one time he told me he just got himself too tight. And he had that one with Dickie Gaines.
Right.
And I swear he was leading it 5 feet before the checkered and 5 feet after, but he was not leading it at the checkered.
Right.
And so the one he won, it come down that night, and then every race was amazing. That night he come off 4, and Darlin showed him the nose coming for the checkered, and some guy lap car was sitting there coming to the checkered. He didn't realize it was coming behind him. Jesse wasn't lifting.
Yeah.
They split that guy at the checkered. Jesse was on the fence, and it scared the holy crap out of me. And it was an amazing night of racing. And the Nowing cars, I have always just loved them, and they put on, they scare me, which is good, in a good way, and they're dangerous. And
you raced Knoxville Nowing 55 car.
I did. I'm thinking about. I wanted to race it last year too, and Lori put the kibosh on it, but I'm thinking about doing it. I don't care what she says or my boys say. I'm thinking about running that thing this year. So it's about me. It's about something personal.
You're tough when she's not around.
Yeah. To me, because it scares me, and I like to overcome things that scare me, and I want to show people that I can do it. And I mean, I don't expect to go out there and kick those guys' butts by any means. Brady Bacon and those guys, Kevin Thomas, are pretty awesome. But it's about something in my heart, something I want to do myself, to prove to myself. But I love the Nowing cars, and I love all sprint cars. I love all racing, but I'm a sprint car freak.
What was the gal's name that Schumann came in with? She had those drivers. I mean, the gate opens at 3 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Evelyn, yes.
Evelyn. She had the microphone. My dad used to try to get her stirred up, and Evelyn, these guys aren't doing it. And get her on that little thing. Get up there.
Oh, yeah.
She was awesome.
She was like drill sergeant material because those guys listened.
Yeah. She was on Johnny Carson once, too.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's passed away, but she was a great lady.
Unbelievable. The history that we can sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours. And I'm drinking my bottle of water over here, and you've got your Spark in yours.
I'm not a talker, but
You're
for you,
not a talker.
For you, I can.
Normally, I shake my head yes and no and everything else, but some big things going on. We talked about Austin and him getting married here a few years ago, and Carson wins a championship. Austin did it backwards. He got married, then won a championship. Carson wins a championship, and now he's engaged to be married.
Yeah, we got a great family. I mean, we have a real racing family. I'm pretty tight with my kids and their wives, and Carson's engaged to Peyton Delansky, Craig's daughter, which is fun. I mean, I've known my dad.
I would have lost this bet 20 years ago, man. I'm just telling you that straight up. I would have lost.
Believe it or not, Craig and I are good friends, and and he's got a great daughter. And Craig used to. My dad raced against Bill Delansky up at North Star Speedway on Sundays, and my dad would let me go in the pits. And Craig's out there, and I think he was 12 years old driving a push truck. And I'm like, Dad, Bill Delansky's kid's driving. He's a little bit younger than me. I'm like, my dad goes, I don't care. First of all, you ain't coming to the pits, and you certainly are driving a push truck. That's for sure. So I've known Bill and Craig and their family since I was probably only 12 or 13 years old. So.
I can bash on Craig. He's not here right now, so that's where he learned to drive a sprint car the first couple of years. He was driving push truck because his first year or two in a sprint car was kind of at best dangerous some days.
Yeah, he stood on the gas.
Oh,
He's had an amazing career. So.
It was unbelievable. So when's the wedding date on Carson and Peyton anyway?
Don't put me. March, I think, again next year.
Next year,
same. Got to be off season. But
I had to get one question in there.
I'm lucky because I've always wanted a daughter, and now I have Alyssa and Peyton, and I love them both, and they're both great.
Yeah.
Great ladies and super fun, and they're both passionate about racing too, and they back their husband just like Lori did me, and that's really important, I think, if they want to do that. I mean, I wish my boys would try to do something else, but we got a great family, and we all love racing. We hang out quite often, and I'm pretty blessed in that situation.
You talk about racing non-wing, or maybe I'll see what Lori has to say about that. What else does Terry McCarl have left to do?
Well, I might put on I don't want to tick a bunch of people off, but we're working on trying to put on another spring challenge here in a few weeks. So we might have a place we can put on a race legally that the law will allow, and we'll keep people 6 foot apart, and we got to get a little game plan going. Hopefully, you got the scoop. If it happens, it's not 100%. I'm working on some different loose ends, and hopefully it'll happen end of April or so. Maybe, and we'll see what Knoxville does. But we got to get back to racing. I want to race.
Yeah.
I want to see a race. I mean, this iRacing thing's pretty cool. My dad would laugh at me and tell me this is a joke, but I mean, we're hooting and hollering and jumping up and down.
Well, Austin's running good too.
Yeah, Carson was running there tonight too. Yeah. And for what it is, it's fun. Those people who aren't watching it, it's fun. You get to see a lot of your favorite drivers at your favorite track, and it's not easy, and that's why I don't do it. But it's just something. It's racing, and it's racing related. And you see a lot of your old favorites maybe racing. But gosh darn, you get on FS1 with Jeff Gordon and Clint Boyer. That's pretty huge for sprint cars. So I think it's a good way to keep everybody still thinking about sprint car racing and involved in sprint car racing or the late model stuff or whatever. But for the situation we're in, I think it's awesome. And Austin's really good at it and done really well at it. And for a lot of those guys, keep their sponsors, keep them mentioned, unless you're Bubba Wallace. I don't know. It's been pretty good for guys.
He got a new one, though. He lost one and got one. So
there you go.
It was an even trade. Works. You mentioned iRacing. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I got to tell you, I can count on one hand the number of NASCAR races that I've watched on TV in the last 5 years. I mean, I've lost interest. There's no bad guy. There's no rivalries anymore.
Yeah.
And to watch the iRacing just for the comments alone, because when I went to NASCAR races live, I always made sure I had a scanner because listen to Earnhardt Jr. talk and those guys. I mean, they always had something clever to say. Stewart especially,
Oh yeah.
And Boyer, he's the show when he's racing and when he's also commentating.
Awesome. Yeah, he makes it great.
He got wrecked. He got wrecked by Bubba. And
I was watching.
What happened? I got bubbaed. That's funny. That you can't rewrite that script. But and again, Boyer has been around all forms of racing. He's been to Knoxville. He brought up Dingus the other night for crying out loud. I mean, you talk about free publicity, but he's a dirt tracker. He promotes where he came from. And I think that's important in all fields of racing, which takes me back. You're talking about I know you've talked to the legal side of it with the states and find out if or not you can legally pull off a race. That's the promoter in you. You want to drive. Don't get me wrong, but you want fans to be happy too.
Absolutely. I think the only way we could really pull it off, we can't put as many people in the stands as we like. Maybe they wouldn't show up anyway. I don't know. But with the the social distancing thing. But with pay-per-view, we could hopefully make it happen, and obviously it'd be on pay-per-view, and it could hopefully be a different revenue stream for us. But I mean, I'm going crazy. I want to race. Like I said, I'm watching iRacing, jumping up and down, getting angry.
Right.
And my wife's like, "You do know this is just a computer game. I mean, if Austin flips, we don't have to fix it. He's not going to get hurt.
It doesn't cost anything.
No, he's not going to be in the Knoxville area hospital here." So I said, but that goes back to all of us, everybody involved. Clint and Bubba getting mad because I don't care what it is. We're competitive. If you're winning or you're good at something or in that type of race, I don't care what type of racing it is. You're there because you're competitive. No one there stinks, really. You might think they do, but they're not. They were winners in something. And I'm competitive in everything I do in life, and so are my boys. So, she's like, calm down. I go, I want him to win.
Yeah.
I want Austin to win. Plus, he's my son. So I think it's great. I think it's great for the sport and keeps us all interested, like I said. So hopefully if we can get this race pulled off here in a few weeks, that would be fun. I mean, I'm sure I'll catch some crap from people, but we're doing our best to follow all the guidelines, all the rules. And obviously we couldn't do it or wouldn't do it if it wasn't legal in the area. It's not in Iowa.
Right.
But hopefully we'll come out next week with it, and if we can make it happen. If not, we're trying. So
got to keep on trying.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe that racers are competitive in anything, I challenge you to find tape of the first Front Row Challenge and the foot race, because those guys were tackling each other in a foot race.
Well, I didn't think when I come up with that idea, another one of my great ideas.
Yeah.
I didn't think anyone would do it. And then I realized how competitive we are, and we all think we're 20 years old in our heart. And then Patty Hodenshaw comes up to me. I mean, I'm hoping 5 guys do it, and I had 25, I think. I'm like, oh my God. And Patty comes up to me ahead of time. She goes, Jack's going to win this. He's going to win this foot race. I go, you think so? Oh, yeah, he's fast. And so many different people came up to me going, in high school, I was a track runner, and I was this, and I was a quarterback. I go, okay, whatever. You're 52 now or 40, whatever. And, I'm like, Patty, you think Jack? Oh, Jack's going to kill these guys. I'm like, his legs are only this big.
Yeah.
And doggone it, he won the start. I think he led the first, 10, 15 yards, but it was about a 50-yard dash, so he didn't quite make it. But I loved it because, again, back to the competitiveness. It showed me we're all still at 20-year-old in our heart, or our wives believe in us, like Patty, she's a huge Jack fan, of course, and they believe we're going to win. And it was competitive. And I didn't think people would do it. And I had too many guys almost do it. We were spread out across the track. Right. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, Tyler Walker won a set of all-pro heads. People don't forget the things we've done at the Front Row Challenge. And we've been copied so much, and it makes me angry sometimes, but then it makes me happy that people are promoting, because people didn't promote that well, I don't think. You had guys like Hilly Rife back in the day. You probably know who that is out in Lincoln, Pennsylvania. And you had guys who promoted. I think Steve Rubin is a very good promoter.
Right.
But a lot of guys just put on races, I said. Nowadays you need to promote. But we gave away chassis kits for heat race winners one year. Rear ends.
Tony Schilling won one.
It is, yeah. And Tyler Walker won a set of all-pro heads for winning a foot race. I mean, it was worth $5,000 or $6,000 at the time, I think, retail. So I just do things that I would really, really appreciate if I was a car owner at the track or a driver at the track. And Lori tells me all the time, she's like, if you didn't do half the stuff you do, no one would notice, because most of these tracks don't do anything either. And like the belt, I know you're a big wrestling fan. That was Carson when he was a little boy. He was really into wrestling. And
I know. We tore up your basement one night.
Oh, yeah. And he was just a little boy. He said, "Dad, you know what'd be a really cool trophy for Oski?" I go, "What's that?" He said, "One of those WWF belts." I go, "Oh, man, that's a great idea." And Dwayne from Old No Dust, Dwayne made me the first ones up in Marshalltown. He had a trophy thing, and he since passed. And it's the most amazing trophy there is, other than Knoxville Nationals and probably the Kings Royal.
Dustin, we're going to talk about it now.
Oh, wow. You can.
Can we?
I'm so proud of that thing cost me $1,300. That belt cost it's
right,
real. It's legit.
It's leather.
If you ever get a hold of it, it's really it's the guys.
I've held it.
The way I found out the company that did it is I sold a car to Hulk Hogan. Bubba the Love Sponge bought a car off me, and Terry Hogan is his name. He paid for it.
Right.
And so I asked him where they get those belts, because that's about when Carson mentioned it to me years ago. And he told me the company, and so I got a hold of them, and that's where I get them made. And they're legit. They're awesome. I mean, I would love to win one. Like, I see people copying them. It kind of irritates me in a way, but Dwayne had a great sense of humor.
Dwayne Davis, who we're talking about.
Yeah.
This guy did above and beyond for the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum. He was behind the scenes on a lot of stuff, and thank God he had a great sense of humor. He passed away, and it was an Outlaw night. And the only reason I remember that is Bobby Jackson was still around.
Yep.
And we were getting ready to go hot lapping.
Are the statute of limitations up on this?
They are, yeah.
Okay,
there's been several others since then anyway. But you couldn't spread ashes in a public area at the time, and of course we honored that in our own little way, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I never will forget, because you're carrying the ashes with you, Dwayne, the ashes with you, and the plan was you're going down the backstretch because you want to do it right in front of the Hall of Fame,
where his family was.
Mm-hmm. And then you throw the bag out at the ambulance stand. I'd run out and grab it real quick.
You didn't know anything about this, Mike?
Not at all. Yeah. So anyway, we never will forget. We're getting ready to go green.
In hot laps.
You start letting the ashes go, and it looks like the car's going up in smoke, because what we didn't plan on was aerodynamics sucking them back into the cockpit with you.
Yeah. I didn't.
And Bobby Jackson gets on, he goes, hold it, stay yellow. Looks like McCarl, he might be blowing up, and I knew he wasn't. And I go to the backstretch, and Rick Rankin, who's on the fair board now, he goes walking, I goes, what's this bag all about? And I literally grabbed the bag right out of his hand. I was like, I'll take care of it, You go out and you hot lap then. And you come back in, and fuel cell's covered. You're covered.
And you got to remember, if people didn't know Dwayne, he had
he would have loved it.
He was a very good sense of humor. He was a very funny guy, a great guy. So go ahead.
You're up in the trailer, and I come in with a big old smile on me, and I look up, and Lori's dusting you off, and I don't think she realized what she was doing.
Well, did I ever tell you about? So she's like dusting me off, and she goes, "What the heck is all over you?" And she went like this.
Oh no!
Yeah, she was like, "What is that?" And I go, she goes, "What is that?" And I said, "Dwayne." She went, "Oh my God!"
I didn't know that.
And we ended up winning the Outlaw show that night. So I say in Victory Lane, I go, it was kind of awesome because Dwayne's family was up, up in the suites.
You cracked me up that night too.
Yeah, I said Dwayne was riding with us literally tonight, and so No Dust was his Dust was actually riding with us. I mean, I made a joke, and again, he was a really funny guy. He would have loved it. And
his family loved it. They came down laughing afterwards.
If you believe in God or not, or things like that, we won the Outlaw show that night, and I've won a few, but we won that night with Dwayne literally riding with me. So I was pretty proud of that and pretty happy that he was involved, because he was such a great guy for the sport Hall of Fame.
Unbelievable. Like I said, the dedication he had to the Hall of Fame.
What happened was I drove by Schatz right before the green come out. I was trying to get Dwayne on Schatz a little bit. I was shaking at Schatz. That's what happened there. Donnie don't know that, I don't think. But
you messed around with Schatz quite a bit back then. We need to end this thing, but you always bring up more stories about that. I remember you waving at Schatz before, and the guy, without a doubt, in this particular century at least, is the best out there. One of the best in the game, period. Again, you can always say Doug Wolfgang, Steve Kinzer, Sammy Swindell were the three that when we were growing up or when we started racing. But Schatz has done some amazing things. And to pass him is one thing, but to pass him and do your famous wave, you know that gets underneath his skin.
Yeah, they just replayed that on Dirt Vision, and it was a lot of fun. And he was at home talking about it, so was I. So that was a lot of fun. And like I said in that, I don't think Donnie has a ton of friends in the pits. And back when I was on the Outlaw Tour, I was pretty good friends with him.
Sure.
And I understand him, and I really have a lot of respect for him and his family. And people don't. It's hard when you're a champion and you win a lot. Not, and I haven't won near as much as him, but those nights, those really competitive people, it's hard to sometimes deal with the fans afterwards when you've had a bad night. That's where I'm kind of opposite. It helps me get over it.
Right.
Some fans, and I understand both sides of it, so I tried to screw with Donnie as much as I could, and I had a little bobblehead, like I said, on my car that night, and waving at him was just I'd ran second to him there the year before, or maybe 2 years before that, and so I was really fast at Casey. I had good setup, and he was obviously too. But I always tell people when you bring up like Doug Wolfgang or Steve Kinzer or Joe Saldana or whoever, Jerry Blundy back in my day and Roger Rager, when I was a little boy, but you can't say who's better than Michael Jordan or LeBron.
Right.
You can sit and debate, and it's fun if you want to debate it, but all you can be is the best of your time.
Right.
And because things change, and the rules change, and the cars change, and the tires change. In basketball, the rules change, the 3-point, plays, things like that. And Steve Kinzer was obviously the best at his time, and Donnie Schatz is the best of his time, and his time will come and go like everybody else's, and then someone else will come around. It's going to be the best. They'll be the best of the time. That, to me, it's dumb to argue it, but if you want to, it's fun to argue those things. But Donnie's is the best driver for his time.
Right.
He really is.
I answer this question the same way. Somebody asked me here a while back on an interview. I was on a show, and they said, "Will Dan Lasacci's record ever be broke?" And I said, "Sure." And they're like, "Oh no. Someday all records get broken. I mean, it's a big one, but if somebody stays here as much as Dude did."
Well, Danny went outlaw racing, and so did I. In 1990, I left, and I was gone for 3 years, and then I went on the All-Star Tour with Junior and Janet, and so I've went off racing. That 1 year in 2009, we won the owner championship with Todd, but I missed some races. We had another guy drove our car number 24 for the owners championship, but so I just wanted to go outlaw racing. Even today, if I had the money right now. I love Knoxville; it means a lot to me. But I want to race against the best.
Right.
I can't understand. I don't know why. It's his decision. Make your own decision. But Brown, if I was Brown, I'd be on the Outlaw Tour. At least try it. He has the wherewithal. He's a good enough driver. He's got a great mechanic, and I just want to race against the best. I want to beat the best if I can, and obviously I live right here, and Knoxville to me is the second best if you can't be on the Outlaw Tour. So I've tried to go outlaw racing whenever I can. Again, I'd do it right now. If I had the money, I'd take both my boys just to get the experience of racing so many different tracks and so many different types of tracks like we talked earlier, short tracks, rough tracks, and trying to get on the road and try to. That's where you really can make a good living as a driver, is racing that much. T-shirt sales, or you have different fans every night to buy your T-shirts or your stuff out of your T-shirt trailer. So when you see the same people every week, it's kind of a little more difficult to make as much. But I just I love racing all over and racing different tracks, and the Outlaws is the pinnacle.
Last story we got to tell, and we got to wrap this thing up. Last year, championship night, I was actually out in Las Vegas. I wasn't able to be here. Carson is in a situation where he could lose it or he could win it. He ends up winning the championship. I hear through a grapevine that he was cool, calm, and collected all night long, but somebody else wasn't.
When I got hurt in 2010, I was talking to Lori, and I had my arm in a sling, and I'm watching Austin race every night. I don't think Carson was racing yet. And Lori said, I just realized something. You've really never seen Austin race before, because normally I was racing against him.
Sure.
And I was busy doing things, getting the car ready, and I was hurt, so I couldn't race. And she said, I don't think you've really ever watched him race. And I said, I haven't. She goes, you need to calm down. I don't know how she does it. I don't know how all the moms and dads out there do it, because, again, as a parent, it throws you into a whole different thing. People, and that's what my kids don't understand, what it's like to try to race against them. But all the moms out there, especially, and all the dads, look how wound up people get over Little League Baseball, moms and dads and grandpas. Sure. But that's what's awesome about racing is, it's kind of the same thing. But yeah, I'm not very good. I keep wanting to take them on the road race and maybe retire and take one of them. But then I get mad at an iRacing event, and I think I don't think I can do it, because I think I'll get myself in trouble in the pits or get them in trouble. But I get pretty emotional, pretty wound up about it. But again, we're competitive people, and it's dangerous, and it's your baby out there, and you want them to do well. But yeah, I'm not very good. Lori is amazing. I don't know, She wants me to win. She loves me, I think, and I got to make money to pay her shoe bill if I can, and then she has her 2 babies out there. So she's all the wives. I say that, and I mean it sincerely. All the moms and wives are pretty amazing. But when you're out there as a driver, I'm not scared,
right?
And you think you're invincible, and nobody is, but you think you are, and you're in control basically of the car, kind of, hopefully. But I tell people all the time, it's kind of like driving a motorcycle or riding on the back. I've ridden on the back with my brother Kenny when I was a kid, and I'll never do it again. So, like, me racing is like driving the motorcycle. I feel like I'm in control, and things can happen. But watching your kid racing is like riding on the back. It's scary, and you have no control of what's going on. So I don't like doing it. So, but and I hope maybe someday I can retire. And
you're gonna have to be the guy that stays in the suite all the time.
oh yeah,
you have to do
oh
it.
yeah. I think so. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Hey, appreciate you coming down. I know you got a busy schedule going on.
I'm
right
pretty busy
now.
right now, Mike.
Yeah, you took time out of your midday.
Are we 6 feet apart?
We are,
oh,
as a matter of fact. I've measured
Did
this
you?
before. Yeah, 6 feet 2 inches to be exact. So
very good. Oh, 2 inches.
2 inches. It's always important, you know. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's gonna wrap up this edition of KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. Hey, stay tuned next week, and we'll even let the cat out of the bag a little bit. We picked up a sponsor. It's always fun picking up a
Very
sponsor.
good. It
Yeah,
is.
we got Seafoam coming on board.
Yeah. Oh, they're great people.
Yeah, great products,
people.
and we'll start debuting some of their stuff.
Kevin and the product is good. Kevin Hone's a great guy. Sponsor, is involved in Front Row Challenge. A lot of racing, a lot of teams. So gotta appreciate. I know race fans are very loyal, and I do it. I'll drive by anywhere to get to a Casey's, and Casey's really never sponsored me, or they have Austin now, but they sponsor racing, and I think racing fans like to support people. So everyone that sponsors racing, we try to definitely support them, and race fans are pretty loyal.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming in.
Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate everybody tuning in to KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. Until next time, we'll see you and be safe.
Tired of doing this? Get a can of this and spend more time doing this. Seafoam helps engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Seafoam. Seafoam! Help your engine run smoother and last longer with Seafoam motor treatment. Just pour it in. Seafoam works to clean your fuel system, clean your oil system, and stabilizes fuel up to 2 years. Make the proven choice. Seafoam motor treatment. Available everywhere automotive products are sold.